The Ferrari versus Lamborghini rivalry is one of the most notable rivalries in the world, a feud stemming from two Italian mechanical geniuses who made a fortune pursuing their passion, cars. But then, something got the better of them besides the passion, that good old unyielding Italian pride. In today's video, we'll take a deep dive into the rivalry between Ferrari and Lamborghini and how everything started. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. Lamborghini and Ferrari have been in an almost century-long feud that has not only shaped the automotive industry with the fiercest of competition, but has also brought us some of the best cars the world's ever known. While the feud between both companies is pretty evident today, it wasn't always so. In fact, one car maker was actually a huge fan of the other. So what happened to cause both companies to engage in an all-out war? To find that out, we just have to go back to where it all started, in the Emilia-Romagna region of northern Italy. Born in Modena, Italy in the summer of 1988, Enzo Ferrari was born into a humble family and didn't receive much of an education. Regardless, his parents recall that he was a playful child, but his passion for cars was ignited when at the age of 10, he watched the Circuito di Bologna, a race which Felice Nazzaro won. This was the start of a lifelong passion, and some would even say an obsession with race cars. This obsession would later lead him to build the biggest motor brand in Italy and would also put him in the crosshairs with another car connoisseur. Enzo's dream of racing fast cars didn't start right away, as he and the rest of the world were put on hold by World War I. However, upon returning home from the war, he decided to pursue his dreams of becoming a race car driver. Through the 1920s and 30s, Enzo would work for a race car company, and soon enough, he began his own company supplying car parts to racing teams. His business was relatively successful, but it wasn't until after World War II that Enzo decided he wanted to live out his dream by having cars with his name on them. By 1947, Ferrari SPA was born, and the very first car to roll off the company's production line was the 1.5-liter V12 125S. While Enzo Ferrari was making his way up the business ladder, Ferruccio Lamborghini was paving a similar yet different path just a few towns over. Ferruccio was born into farming rather than sports, and his family's grape vineyard was his first passion and focus. So much so that even he didn't think he would someday own one of the biggest brands in the world. As Ferruccio grew older, he found himself drawn towards farming machines and was intrigued by how they worked. So he began studying them. He went to study mechanical engineering and took his skills into the war, becoming an RAF fighter for Italy against Germany. After the war, Ferruccio decided to pursue his passion for tractors by building them himself. In 1947, Lamborghini Tractor was founded with Ferruccio running things and building his new business into a successful company. The innovative engine lover made more money and even garnered national fame when he branched his business into air conditioning and heaters. Ferruccio's newfound wealth allowed him some expensive luxuries, which included buying exclusive cars, like the vintage Maserati 3500 GTS and the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. Ferruccio's love for high-end cars made him cross paths with Enzo Ferrari when he saw a Ferrari 250 GT and decided he must get one for himself. In 1958, he drove to Maranello, where Ferrari's head factory was situated, just to buy himself a Ferrari. This is where both men would cross paths, and an acquaintance that turned into a rivalry would follow. Ferruccio was in love with Ferraris, so much so that whenever a new client came into his tractor company, he would take them out to dinner in his Ferrari. According to a close associate, Ferruccio was a terrible driver, but that didn't stop him from showing off his sleek new ride whenever he had the chance. For some reason, Ferruccio always seemed to burn the clutch on his Ferraris. As a result, he spent thousands replacing them every time. But after so many repeated trips to the Ferrari factory in Maranello just to replace a burnt clutch, he decided to have his mechanic at his factory take a look at the car. The mechanic made a shocking discovery. It turned out the expensive Ferrari cars were fitted with the same commercial-grade clutch that even Ferruccio used in his tractors. As expected, the tractor maker was visibly furious at the fact that he was made to pay 1,000 lira for a clutch that only cost 10 lira. Ferruccio felt like he'd been betrayed by his beloved Ferrari and wanted to let Enzo Ferrari have a piece of his mind. Ferruccio drove to Enzo Ferrari's Maranello office to tell him what he thought about the situation. The conversation went by with Ferruccio telling Enzo he should use better grade clutches for his expensive cars instead of commercial grade clutches. This was the breaking point of the Ferrari versus Lamborghini saga, as Enzo's reply to Ferruccio's criticism was the spark that started the flame. Enzo replied saying, "The clutch is not the problem. The problem is you don't know how to drive a Ferrari and you break the clutch. You're a tractor driver, a farmer. You shouldn't complain driving my cars because they are the best cars in the world." This reportedly enraged Ferruccio because even after he had amassed wealth and made a name for himself, Enzo Ferrari still had the nerve to call him a farmer who couldn't drive. Ferruccio replied along the lines of, "Dear engineer, I'll never buy your cars again. From now on, I'll make my own cars. Then I can be sure they work the way I want them to." Needless to say, Ferruccio Lamborghini left Ferrari's office with a new passion in mind, a passion born from spite and the urge to make cars the way he wanted, because nothing says, "hold my beer" like starting a whole company. Ferruccio's drive to build the perfect car was unlike anything the automotive industry had ever seen. This drive saw Ferruccio starting his company Lamborghini SPA in 1963, and in under 4 months, he had designed and built his first car, the Lamborghini 350 GTV. The world was in shock at how fast Lamborghini, a new sports car company with no experience building a car, built its first one so fast. Well, it turned out that a burning passion to build a perfect sports car wasn't the only thing Ferruccio Lamborghini took away from his meeting with Enzo Ferrari. He also managed to poach 5 former top executives from the company. When the news broke, many began to wonder how Ferruccio Lamborghini, a tractor maker that wasn't half as wealthy as Enzo Ferrari, managed to recruit 5 former top executives from Ferrari. Well, here's the thing. He didn't have to, because as it turned out, they had already left Ferrari at the time and still held a grudge against Enzo Ferrari for firing them. The whole debacle started when 5 top engineering execs at Ferrari, which included legendary development manager Giotto Bizzarini and chief engineer Carlo Citti, went to their boss Enzo with a little problem. Enzo's wife Laura was giving directions and making important decisions on the floor which they thought was disrupting the workflow and the work environment, so they wanted her to stop. Again, it seems Enzo was the worst at taking criticism from anyone, and instead of taking their advice or saying no, he hurled insult after insult at them and fired them all on the spot. Fast forward summer 1963, and Lamborghini employed these seasoned engineers to build his new car. The all-new Lamborghini 350 GTV was only meant to be a prototype, but it was so good when it was unveiled at the Turin Motor Show in 1963, it positioned Lamborghini as a true contender in the war of sports cars. The car could go from 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds and 0 to 100 in 16.3 seconds, which was really impressive for a prototype. The 360 GT had top speeds of 158 miles per hour, which put it in contention with the speed offered by Ferrari cars. The car was such an instant hit that Lamborghini sold 13 units the very first day and would go on to sell 120 units over the next year. In a not-so-subtle response to Lamborghini's emergence into the sports car market, Ferrari produced the exquisite Ferrari 250 GTO with its magnificent V12 engine. Ferrari proved experience was better than youth, with the 250 GTO surpassing Lamborghini's breakout car with its specs. Ferrari's 250 GTO would go 0 to 60 in just 5.6 seconds, which was a whole second faster than Lamborghini's 350 GTV. It could also reach a top speed of 174 miles per hour, surpassing the 350 GTV by more than 10 miles per hour. Over the next 5 decades, both companies would go head-to-head in race competitions, with Ferrari coming out ahead at first. Still, Lamborghini soon proved its prowess by winning a handful of races, putting Ferrari's dominance to the test. In the 70s, Ferrari released the Ferrari 308 GTS, a sleek 2-seater with a powerful V8 engine, and going 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds and hitting a top speed of 170 miles per hour. But Lamborghini proved itself a worthy adversary with one of the world's best sports cars to date, the famed Lamborghini Countach. The Countach, which simply meant wow in Italian, was indeed a beauty to hold. Introducing the world's first scissor doors, the Countach outsold Ferrari for the first time in history and fully established itself as the dominant force in the industry. The 80s were a rough time for both companies. Lamborghini went bankrupt and was sold off to new owners, and Ferruccio retired to a luxury estate. The 80s were also a sad time for Ferrari, as Enzo Ferrari passed away in 1988, while Ferrari also went through a transition with new management taking over. Ferruccio Lamborghini also passed away 5 years later in 1993, but both companies still held on to the long-standing rivalry between the founders. Ferrari and Lamborghini are still going at it even today, but in a less obvious manner. Today, Lamborghini appears to be ahead of Ferrari, with the Lamborghini Veneno reaching top speeds of 221 miles per hour, making it the fastest Lambo on the streets. Ferrari, they're not too far behind, with the Ferrari 812 Superfast having a top speed of 211 miles per hour, making it the fastest car ever produced by the Italian maker. The world is going green with the emergence of electric vehicles, and both companies are shifting with the curve. Lamborghini hopes to have an all-electric car in 2027, with Ferrari also matching the same timeline. The emergence of electric cars will undoubtedly start another round of competition between both companies. But the good news for us, we get to see the best each has to offer, and we can't wait for it. Hey, thank you for watching, and don't forget, subscribe and activate notifications for even more inspiring videos. Cheers.